Hi everybody. Okay, lesson 3 on solving equations. So in this lesson we're going to build on what we've been talking about in terms of solving equations by focusing on questions that have the form of a and then in brackets x plus b equals to c. And you have seen this again in the past before in the form of an example like 2 bracket x minus 1 equals to 8. And you can solve this kind of equation in two different ways. You've either been taught to distribute the 2 and then solve like normal, or you can divide the 2 first and then leave yourself with x minus 1. So in this question, I'm going to distribute first, leaving me with 2x minus 2 equals to 8. And then we're solving like normal. Plus 2, x is equal to 10, and then divide by 2, giving us an answer of 5. Okay, so let's begin with our first example. In this question, we have 3, and then in brackets, d plus 0.4 equals to negative 3.9. So I'm going to show this to you in two different methods. The first one is going to be distributing just like we just did. We're going to distribute the 3 into the brackets first. So this becomes 3d plus 0.4 times 3. So you will have use of a calculator here. 0.4 times 3 is going to be 1.2, which is equal to negative 3.9. And then once we get here, we're solving just like we've been doing the whole unit so far. So minus 1.2 to both sides, leaving us with 3d equals to negative 5.1, and then we're going to divide by 3. So this divided by 3 will be negative 1.7. So our second method involves dividing by the 3 first. So when we set up our equation, 3 plus d 0.4 equals to negative 3.9, we're going to start by dividing both sides by 3. So what you're looking for is that this is a 3 and it's a multiplication of everything in this bracket. So instead of distributing, we can just say, oh, well, if it's 3 times this thing in parentheses, we can just divide by 3. And when we do that, these two will simplify, leaving us with d plus 0.4 equals to negative 1.3. Now, before I continue solving this, I wanted to mention that a lot of students leave the brackets on, so they leave the brackets here like this, but it's actually not necessary. It's easier to erase these brackets because you don't need them anymore. The whole point of the bracket is that when you have your original question, you have to have a bracket so that you know the 3 multiplies to both of them. Well, in this step, since the 3 is already gone, the brackets are pointless. You don't need them there at all. So we drop the brackets so that we can see, oh, okay, well that means d plus 0.4 can just be subtracted, and you're left with negative 1.7. So both answers are the same. We're very happy, and then we're going to move on. All right, example number 2. So in this question, we have t minus 1 over 5 equals to 3 over 2. Now, the first thing you might notice is that this question doesn't really have brackets, which is what your lesson was supposed to be about. A bracket x plus b equals to c. Now, one of the things that you have to understand about expressions that look like this is when there is a t minus 1 all over 5, so when we write an expression like this, we assume it's mathematically assumed that this is in brackets. So what that means is you have to do t minus 1 first before you divide it by 5. So we don't write the brackets because it's just always assumed to be the case. Now, when we're solving an equation like this is going to look similar to the method I showed you in the previous video where you're making a common denominator. So we have a fraction over 5 and we have a fraction over 2. Our common denominator between 5 and 2 is 10. So our lowest common denominator is equal to 10. Now what we're going to do is use that number to get rid of both fractions at the same time. So what it looks like is we say, okay, if we know the fraction is over 3 over 2, we can multiply by 10 over 1 as long as we multiply by 10 over 1 to the other side. What this will do is it will eliminate both fractions. So this and this simplifies to a 2. This and this simplifies to a 5. Now this part up here is tricky. Remember how I said there was a bracket here? Now you actually have to write the bracket. This looks like 2 times t minus 1 equals to 15, which then becomes 2t minus 2 equals to 15. And then we proceed as is. 2t equals to 15 plus 2, which is 17. And then you divide 2 to both sides. So t equals to 17 over 2. So the key in this step is to learn that you can multiply both sides by the lowest common denominator if you ever want to get rid of fractions. Okay, our last example. Here it says the mean of two numbers is 3.2. One of the numbers is 8.1. What's the other number? So the important word here is mean, which means the average of two numbers. And then we use that idea to figure out what the other number is. So when we want to take the average, we're going to take an unknown number, we're going to add it to the other known number, and divide it by 2. This is going to be equal to 8.1. And then once we see this, we solve as is. So we have an expression that's over 2. We're going to remove the 2 first. So we're going to multiply by 2 over 1 to both sides. This and this will simplify, leaving us with x plus 3.2 equals to 16.2. And then you're going to subtract 3.2 from both sides. And then you're left with 13.0. So this is our solution. Once again, with all of these questions, I didn't go through it, but when you are working on it on yourself, go through the process of checking it to see if your solution matches what the equation says it should. Okay, now you try. You're going to solve these questions, and once again, you'll know you're correct if you just take your answer and then substitute it back in. Good luck, and I will see you next class.